It was supposed to be a regular morning, just like any other, as kids boarded the bright yellow school bus, chatting and laughing on their way to start another day. Among them was a quiet young girl, her backpack neatly packed, her shoes polished, and her excitement evident. But the moment she stepped onto the bus, everything changed. The bus driver, who was supposed to be a trusted adult, did something no one could have imagined. Without warning or explanation, the driver's demeanor turned cold. Words were exchanged, and suddenly, in an act of unthinkable aggression, the young girl found herself being forcefully pushed off the bus. The chaos left everyone in shock, and for those watching, it felt surreal. Parents standing at the curb were horrified. Some ran to intervene, while others tried to comprehend what they were seeing. Why had this happened? What could lead a trusted school official to act in such an unacceptable manner? And most importantly, what would come of this shocking incident? For the little girl, the pain wasn't just physical, it was emotional, as the trust she had in adults crumbled in an instant. But this story doesn't end with that heartbreaking moment. What happened next would leave everyone stunned and turn this alarming incident into a larger story of justice, accountability, and lessons that no one could have predicted. As the truth unraveled and emotions ran high, the repercussions of that single moment set off a chain reaction that would change lives forever. This isn't just a story about one terrible event. It's about how a community reacts, how voices rise together, and how an unexpected twist can challenge everything we think we know. What unfolded next will leave you speechless. Stay tuned. As the dust settled and the little girl stood outside the bus, visibly shaken, the crowd around her grew. Parents and neighbors, who had initially assumed this was just another school morning, now found themselves drawn into the unfolding drama. Whispers quickly turned into heated murmurs as people demanded answers from the bus driver, who remained behind the wheel, unapologetically glaring at everyone. Some parents rushed to console the girl, while others demanded to know why the situation had escalated in such an unthinkable way. The young girl, barely able to speak through her tears, struggled to explain what had happened. She recounted how, upon stepping onto the bus, she had been met with a sudden hostility from the driver. There had been no warnings, no reasoning, just pure disdain that she couldn't understand. The driver's aggressive actions felt targeted, and for everyone watching, it became painfully clear that something deeper was at play. As the story began spreading among the growing crowd, tensions rose. Why had the bus driver acted this way? Was it a misunderstanding, or was there a darker motive behind their actions? Many parents recalled smaller instances of odd behavior from the driver, but had brushed them off as isolated moments. This incident, however, felt impossible to ignore. The school administration was quickly contacted, and soon more officials arrived at the scene. The bus driver remained stubborn, offering no explanation other than claiming they were just doing their job. But as the little girl's trembling hands clutched her backpack and tears streamed down her face, it was obvious that no excuse could justify such treatment. What no one knew yet was that this event would ignite a chain of revelations, uncovering hidden truths no one saw coming. Something big was about to unfold. The little girl's mother arrived at the scene moments later, rushing toward her daughter with panic in her eyes. Holding her child close, she demanded an explanation from the bus driver, who now appeared defensive yet unmoved. The tension between the driver and the parents had reached a boiling point, and the school officials, scrambling to de-escalate the situation, seemed unsure how to proceed. They'd promised to investigate, but their vague reassurances only fueled the growing frustration among the bystanders. Meanwhile, whispers spread like wildfire through the neighborhood. Several parents began sharing troubling anecdotes of their children's interactions with the same driver, stories of unfair treatment, harsh words, and an unsettling pattern of targeting certain kids. What initially seemed like an isolated incident now began to feel part of something much larger. People couldn't help but wonder, how long had this been happening, and why had no one spoken up until now? Among the growing crowd was a man standing quietly to the side, observing everything. Though unassuming at first glance, there was something commanding about his presence. Some recognized him as a local advocate who had previously challenged instances of misconduct in the community. As the crowd buzzed with speculation, he stepped forward and began asking pointed questions. Why wasn't this caught earlier? How has this been allowed to go on? What will the school system do to ensure this never happens again? His voice carried authority, and his words drew the attention of everyone around. But the focus always circled back to the little girl, whose tears had now dried as she clung to her mother. Her small, shaking voice repeated a single question that hung in the air, haunting everyone who heard it. Why did she hate me? The answer remained unclear, but the truth felt closer than ever, and it was about to change everything. As the man's questions continued to echo, tension gripped the crowd. Parents grew louder in their frustration, demanding immediate action. The bus driver, now surrounded by angry voices, began to lose the aloofness she had maintained earlier. Her stammered defenses didn't hold up to the rising scrutiny. She wasn't following the rules, the driver mumbled, her voice shaky but still defiant. Yet, it was clear that her reasoning wasn't convincing anyone. If it had simply been about rules, why had the incident escalated to such an extreme? The school principal arrived on the scene, trying to regain control of the situation. He asked the parents to remain calm and assured them that a thorough investigation would take place. But the promise fell flat. This wasn't the first time families in this neighborhood had heard such pledges, only to see them lead to nothing. Frustration turned into determination as a few parents stepped forward, recounting how their children had been subjected to the same kind of treatment. Each story added a new layer to the growing picture of bias and neglect that had clearly gone unchecked for far too long. Meanwhile, the man who had spoken up earlier began digging deeper. Using his phone, he started recording testimonies from the families gathered, each one a stark reminder of the injustice that seemed systemic. The school officials tried to stop him, claiming it wasn't the place for this, but the crowd sided with him. Their voices rose as one, demanding transparency and accountability. The incident was no longer just about a single girl. It had evolved into a fight for fairness and respect for every child in the community. The little girl, clutching her mother's hand, watched quietly as the chaos unfolded. Her mother, though visibly shaken, held her close, determined to stand up not only for her child, but for every other child wronged by the system. All eyes shifted back to the bus driver as someone from the crowd suddenly shouted, "Why won't you tell the truth?" The driver froze, her expression tightening. For the first time, the confident demeanor she had projected earlier cracked. Something had shifted, and everyone felt it. An explosive revelation was just moments away. Just as the bus driver seemed ready to respond, an unexpected voice rang out from the edge of the crowd. "Wait, I've seen this driver before." A middle-aged woman stepped forward, her voice filled with a mix of disbelief and anger. All eyes shifted toward her, and even the bus driver visibly tensed. The woman went on to explain that she had witnessed a similar incident just a few weeks ago at a different school in the district. Her nephew, a shy young boy, had been thrown off the bus for what the driver claimed was misbehavior, only for the boy to later share that it had started because he had simply asked to switch seats. The parallels were undeniable, and the crowd's outrage grew louder. The principal and other school staff attempted to intervene, urging everyone to remain calm while offering promises to handle the matter internally. But the momentum had already shifted. More parents came forward with their own accounts of discrimination, unfair punishments, and dismissive attitudes from bus staff. Each testimony painted a disturbing picture, and it became evident that this was not an isolated incident but part of a larger pattern. Amid the growing uproar, another twist emerged. Someone in the crowd, scrolling on their phone, made a shocking discovery. A video from a security camera near the bus stop had been uploaded online. It showed the very moment the driver had grabbed the young girl by the arm, pushing her off the bus with unnecessary force. The footage was undeniable, and gasps rippled through the crowd as the clip was shared from phone to phone. The driver's demeanor shifted entirely, her earlier confidence now replaced with visible panic. But just as the driver seemed cornered, a sharp voice cut through the chaos. "This goes higher than her," said the man who had started collecting testimonies. "It's not just one person, it's the whole system that lets this happen again and again." His words hung in the air, heavy with meaning, and the crowd's anger now turned toward the school officials. The principal's face paled, realizing that this situation was spiraling far beyond their control. The tension was palpable as the crowd waited for what would come next, sensing that the final revelation was about to turn everything upside down. As the weight of the crowd's testimonies and the damning video evidence bore down, the principal finally raised a hand for silence. His voice wavered as he announced that the driver would be placed on immediate suspension while an official investigation began. The crowd was unmoved by the seemingly hollow gesture. "Suspension isn't enough," one parent shouted. The energy in the air shifted again, this time toward action. Several parents vowed to escalate the matter to the district and beyond. It became clear that this was no longer just about one child or one bus driver. It was about systemic accountability. The driver, standing awkwardly near the front of the bus, finally broke her silence. Her tone was defensive and accusatory, claiming that her actions were taken out of frustration because she wasn't getting the respect she deserved from these kids. The audacity of her statement sent murmurs of disbelief rippling through the crowd. It only worsened when someone dug up and played an old news clip from their phone, a report about an identical incident involving the same driver at another district years ago, proving a disturbing history. But just as everything seemed to hit its boiling point, the final twist arrived. A parent who had been recording the entire confrontation live announced that the state education office had tuned into the footage after it started trending online. Within moments, an email arrived from an official demanding an emergency review of the district's transportation policies, along with the immediate termination of the bus driver for gross misconduct. Applause erupted as the crowd processed this decisive action. Justice felt within reach. Still, before the crowd dispersed, the young girl's mother stood tall and addressed everyone. "This is about ensuring no other child experiences what my daughter went through. We have to stay united." Her powerful words struck a chord, and as the parents exchanged contact information to organize further advocacy, the community came together in a way no one had anticipated. They realized that the driver's actions may have started this chain of events, but it ended with their resolve to hold the system accountable. The community's collective action didn't stop with the driver's termination. In the days that followed, parents, teachers, and local leaders gathered to hold open forums addressing larger issues in the school district. The transportation department agreed to mandatory sensitivity and cultural competence training for all drivers, along with clearer accountability structures. Policies were revised to ensure that any future complaints would be handled swiftly and transparently. The young girl at the center of it all returned to school with overwhelming support from her peers and their families. Her confidence, shaken at first, grew stronger as she saw how her experience sparked a movement. Her mother, who had once felt powerless in the face of injustice, became a vocal advocate for children's rights. She began working closely with parent-teacher organizations and even started a mentorship program for students, helping them learn how to stand up for themselves. Meanwhile, the bus driver's actions served as a wake-up call, not just locally but far beyond. The incident gained national attention, with conversations around discrimination and accountability in schools surfacing in similar districts. Many applauded the community's resolve to tackle systemic issues instead of letting the situation fade into obscurity. Though it was a painful journey, the family found hope in how their community came together. The mother shared one last reflection. "It's never easy to face situations like this, but when people unite, incredible change can happen. My daughter learned that her voice matters, and that's a lesson we want every child to carry with them." As life slowly returned to normal, the small but powerful transformation in the community left an indelible mark. The story reminded everyone that even in the darkest moments, resilience and unity can create lasting, meaningful change. It ended with hope and the promise of a brighter future for everyone involved.